Positive Spin, presenting positive,
The passion for change, the
Be
passion.
elated that you are alive.
innovative, and solution-oriented news from around the world.
Just beyond the Ka statue stood the Anubis shrine. Anubis was the guardian of the dead, and he was responsible for allowing you to have an afterlife.
On today's program, we'll visit the Museum of Ancient Wonders in Coachella Valley, California.
He would weigh your heart. And if your heart was heavier than the feather of truth,
I move that the council recommend disapproval of the proposed Vancouver Energy Distribution Terminal.
And we'll profile Limda Garcia, an environmental activist from Canada and recipient of the Goldman Environmental Prize.
North America and her community. A month later,
Then we'll see a UNICEF film featuring interviews with refugees of war desiring to return home.
Our parents go to their jobs. We went to their rooms and used my mother's makeup.
The water, see this pipe? That pipe is plumbed into what used to be the vent for the dryer.
Following that, we'll learn how to live a more sustainable life from Jim Farley in New Mexico.
And then I pump it into the orchard and the garden.
Finally, we'll hear the piano stylings of Christopher Davis Nash. The Museum of Ancient Wonders recently opened in Cathedral City, California. The museum features exhibits on treasures from the Pharaoh's tomb, tribal histories of Africa in the age of dinosaurs. Positive Spin interviewed the founder and director of the museum. So Alberto, how did you start the museum? And what is the purpose of the museum?
the collections began with a mission. The mission was to make treasured artifacts and important fossil discoveries available to communities that would otherwise not have access to the most important wonders of the world. So I spent many years, a decade, collecting these treasures. I went to the Egyptian Art Center in Cairo, Egypt. I consulted and collaborated with paleontologists and paleoanthropologists throughout America to make acquisitions that I could assemble and curate into traveling exhibitions. These exhibitions have traveled to over 50 museums around the country, Canada, Taichung, Taiwan, and San Juan, Puerto Rico, for the last 21 years. And it was incumbent upon me to find a permanent home for these collections.
And why have you chosen Cathedral City?
One of the most important reasons for doing it here was because our predilection in the Valley is for modernism and contemporary art. And of all the regions in the nation, I thought that the Valley could use these cultural exhibitions to create a thread to the past, to give us context for how we live our lives today. I'd like to bring your attention to this panel here. It's hanging on the wall. Above them is a prince and a princess of a tribe. Their ritual in acquiring a mate was very interesting. She would don the antlers of an ibex or a deer and place them above her head, and he would chase her with a blunted arrow. And if his arrow struck her, that meant that they were going to be unified as husband and wife in the future. But here on the wall is a panel. Each square represents a tribe of Africa. Each tribe has a path, and in the center, the circle of eternity, their paths cross, intermingle, and then come through the other side into this next square here. So this symbol here is a symbol of African unity, where all tribes share a history. One of the most precious examples of a baby dinosaur ever discovered is here at the Museum of Ancient Wonders in our Mesozoic Hall of Dinosaurs. It's called Maya Sora, known as the gentle mother lizard. Here we see a baby dinosaur, one of the most complete skeletons of a baby dinosaur ever discovered, found in the Hell Creek Formation of Montana. Now, what's even more interesting, when they found this little baby Maiasaura, they found evidence of its poops. Coprolite is what we call it. And here, just below the back end of the baby, we see examples of coprolite that were left behind by these little babies. It's important to study their coprolite because it, under a microscope, can actually tell us what kind of plants the babies were being fed by their mothers. Now we've entered our main exhibition gallery, the treasures from the tomb of Tutankhamun, the boy king that ruled Egypt over 3,300 years ago. Here we stand in front of his twin spirits, the Ka statues. This is what Howard Carter saw when he first entered the tomb. And of course, if there had been an intruder, these statues were to come to life and fracture the skull of the intruder with the maces they hold in their hands. Just beyond the Ka statues stood the Anubis shrine. Anubis was the guardian of the dead, and he was responsible for allowing you to have an afterlife. He stood by a scale. On one end, he had the feather of truth, and on the other, he would weigh your heart. And if your heart was heavier than the feather of truth, regrettably, you would not have an afterlife. For the ancient Egyptians believed that it was important to die with a light heart, a heart that had let go of all regrets, all enemies, all feelings of negativity. Like all nascent museums that are just opening their doors, our intent is to invite everyone to come and visit the museum, to enrich their lives with the collections that we have on view. We are offering the museum at special hours for anyone with a disability, for groups who are not able to see the museum during regular museum hours. We welcome you to visit our website by going to www.moaw.org. It's the acronym for Museum of Ancient Wonders, where the past enlightens present, guiding a path to our future.
Environmental activist Limda Garcia mobilized the citizens of Vancouver, Canada to stop the construction of North America's largest oil terminal. Her leadership safeguarded residents from harmful air pollution and protected the environment of the Columbia River Gorge.
The city of Vancouver, Washington, has always prospered as a shipping hub for the Pacific Northwest booming lumber industry, but has also been challenged by higher unemployment and homeless rates than neighboring Portland, Oregon. When Dorado Oil, a Texas-based conglomerate, proposed a $210 million project at the Port of Vancouver in 2013, it was met with a warm welcome.
This is a significant boon to the community. It will create jobs.
Talking with the commissioners at the time, they were very excited. We heard the PR spiel for it. It sounded really good. Jobs, jobs, jobs is what we heard. But then some things started coming into play that didn't sound so good.
As Limda Garcia and her associates began to ask questions about what kind of jobs would be created and how long they might last, the answers weren't satisfying. More importantly, the group began researching the potential health hazards of the largest oil terminal in North America. Well, the Port Commission made its decision.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
The idea that something so large with every possible type of risk, from accidents there at the terminal during transfer to an oil spill in the river, to the potential of an oil train spill, derailment, or explosion like we saw in Mosier, Oregon. And the biggest of the concerns, for me anyway, was the moment that terminal would have gone online every single day of the year, poisons and toxins and cancerous chemical substances would have been in the air, and we all have been breathing them in. I could stand on my doorstep and see the Port of Vancouver, and I wasn't going to let a company come in to my neighborhood and steamroll over people. And so, holding the neighborhood meetings and going to the Port Commission and testifying to them why we didn't want this to happen.
Please don't gamble with our futures or that of our children.
Meeting with the Port Commissioners one-on-one.
Well, even worse is a closed door to communication.
While Linda was in the throes of fighting what she thought was the biggest battle in her life, she received a medical diagnosis that forced her to battle on another front.
Then things got really bad, and so I didn't really have a choice, and I had to start going to chemotherapy. But I couldn't let it stop me because I felt this sense that I was going to be letting people down if I didn't keep fighting.
Linda persevered through treatments while attending countless community meetings, as well as local and statewide hearings.
This is about protecting people and precious resources which we all utilize.
Linda confronted lawmakers at every level of government for 3 long years, until finally Washington's Energy Facility Evaluation Council issued an environmental impact statement that the Tesoro project posed significant harm to the community.
I move that the council recommend disapproval of the proposed Vancouver Energy Distribution Terminal.
Linda's fight culminated in Governor Jay Inslee's decision to deny the permits to build the largest oil terminal in North America in her community. A month later, the Port of Vancouver canceled Tesoro Oil's lease on the property.
It feels amazing because we all had the experience of glee and joy and happiness, but we also all know that it's not over.
We're standing together for healthy communities and a healthy climate.
It was so many thousands of other people that stood up and fought, and we were foot soldiers in this battle.
You need to care for the children. I'll see ya. Thank you.
Looking back, it doesn't seem this hard when you realize that there were so many people there with me. I'm in the Pacific Northwest. Mountains everywhere, forests, wilderness areas where I can refine my strength so that I can get back to who I truly am and get rid of a lot of the anger, the fear, the worry. This is my chapel, and this is where I remind myself that this is what the earth is supposed to be like. And so I need to recreate that inside of myself for when I go back down into the city and get back at it again.
For outstanding environmental achievement for North America, the 2019 Goldman Environmental Prize is awarded to Limda Garcia, Vancouver, Washington.
In the following UNICEF video, we hear from families forced to leave their homes as a result of war and their desire to return home and live normal lives.
من خلقي شنقالم وهمو تمت لغيم. أنا كنت أعيش بالموصل. كنت أعيش 10 سنوات. أنا كنت أعيش بسوريا.
I lived in Baghdad, I lived in Mosul, I lived in Basra, I moved a lot.
أنا مهجرة من العراق. بيتنا هناك. بعيد.
In our house, we were sharing the same room.
When our parents go to their jobs, we went to their rooms and used my mother's makeup.
يعني راحت ذكرياتنا، بيتنا، هدومنا، يعني كل شيء راح.
أنا راح أسألك.
أنا هم راح أسألك. أنت شنو تحب بالدار؟
أنا أحب البيت مالي بالدور. وأنا أريد أرجع للبيت مالي بالدور.
أنا نرجع مالي على البيت الدور. كنا نجتمع كلتنا ونضحك نحن وأبي وأمي نفس الساعة وماكو.
أنت شنو أفضل شيء كان عندك؟
أنا نشتغل وأنت بالبيت وأشكل.
تمام.
يعني تروح الجامعة ونشتغل لك.
تمام.
كي البلد اللي انت مثلا حاسس تربو البلاد هذه
هذالي هذالي خوشي يقدمون هذالي من الكامبانا وأزال فيري ما أزكلك بيا واردك. أكو صديقاتي أنا ما أنساهم لأنهم ظلوا بقلبي. ما هي
ذكرياتي إنه أنا كنت زوجي وولادي كانت حياتنا حلوة. بعدين بعد ما توفى زوجي يعني الحياة يعني حياتي تحطمت. يعني لازم أربي هالولاد.
ماذا تعتقد سيحصل لنا بعد 10 سنوات؟
ما سيحصل، ما يحصل كل شيء. إذا أنا معاكم ما يحصل كل شيء. لا تخافوا من كل شيء.
إن شاء الله. إذا تقدري أن تتمني أمنية ماذا ستكون أمنيتك؟
أنا بحب أروح على ألمانيا.
هاي هي الأمنية.
أتمنى تكبرين وتروحين على المدرسة وتتعلمين وتعيشين بأمان وتكونين سعيدة بحياتك.
يعني هيك أتمنى آكل. يلا نروح ناكل بيتزا.
قبل ما نروح ناكل بيتزا.
أكل دافيد تشيشي قال دافيد معلقة شعر.
في معلقة خوش بيه بس كان بتذبح الشو.
We all know it's important to reduce our carbon footprint, but we met a man who's taking his responsibility very seriously. Jim Farley of El Dorado, New Mexico, has a strong commitment to sustainability. He recycles everything, grows his own food, built his own home, and very rarely drives his car. He also has a great sense of humor.
I like Santa Fe, I just don't want to drive anymore. I like my truck. I bought it in 2003, it just turned 100,000. And nothing's ever happened wrong to it. Whatever they did, they must have made an error because it runs well.
Right.
I mean, I'm a hard worker. Like this is a diesel, and I built this for vegetable oil because Hans Diesel built diesel engines for vegetable oil. So I had this all worked out. That's still vegetable oil. I learned how to purify it, and you get it for free from restaurants.
Right, yeah.
The problem with it, when it gets cold, it polymerizes. Cucumbers actually are an amazing nutritious food. It's not just like celery. You're surprised how much nutrition is in them. So now this is a greenhouse. This will produce food, and then I'll plant things in it that don't freeze, bok choy, chard, kale. And the squash is growing. And squash leaves are edible. Grape leaves are edible, and it all goes into my pesto. I try to eat everything that I grow that's edible. And they'll grow all winter because as the sun's getting farther south, down, this stays warm.
Now what's with the eggshells?
Eggshells are the world's finest form of calcium for humans, CaCO3, so you can put them in your coffee water, your tea water. I dry them, pulverize them, and put them in the garden. Calcium's water soluble, so you just put them in water. A lot of people make their coffee with coffee shells.
Really?
Yeah. If you want, I could make you some. It makes it really taste softer.
That'd be interesting.
Very nice. And this is dried apricots. This is dried garlic.
You can grow garlic indoors.
Anything that doesn't need pollination, you can grow indoors. Peas, beans, tomatoes.
Well, the thing is that we don't have a lot of light.
You don't need it.
You don't need
Plants
it.
don't need lights. They don't need sun.
Interesting, huh?
They need radiation of 500 to 700. The new food factories are underground and in buildings.
Really?
And the London bomb shelters is where they're growing the greens for the restaurants in London. Lavender here. So I make tea out of Russian sage, lavender, and mint. This is lavender, not sage. This is sage. This is lavender down here. See it? Those are winter squash. See the big green ones?
Oh, look at it.
When the pioneers came here, it was a little ice age.
Oh, really?
And what saved them was these. Because you didn't have a summer. See how healthy that is? And that's all washing machine water. And rain.
Oh, wow.
The rain goes into my cisterns too. It's all, see the canali?
That's what I was going to ask you. You capture the rain.
Of course.
Right? Yeah.
See the canali?
Yes, I do.
In front of the canali is a hole in the roof.
Okay.
Then there's a pipe going down to take the water to the cistern. Because if you let it drip out the canal, you get all the wind crap, so I didn't do that. So you see that cistern? And this cistern, and that cistern.
Oh, yeah.
Are all connected. See this one orange hose? To that one, and then they go into that other outside cistern. The water, see this pipe? That pipe is plumbed into what used to be the vent for the dryer. Then it's plumbed around the bottom, and it goes through there into the cistern. And then I pump it into the orchard and the garden. These roots goes into here, and see the hose?
Yeah.
The hose is connected to this black hose, so I just plug in the pump, and then I water the greenhouse.
Yeah.
And then the power source is solar, so it doesn't. These are actually not berries; they're seeds. So I make juice out of this and drink it. It's spectacular. Then I make smoothies out of it with my kombucha. See how that's in a hill? I built all that. So when you go down here, you're going to see worms, and it's wet. Should anyway. There they are.
Wow.
They're there. See?
Ah, okay.
I keep it all together.
Yeah.
And it starts to compost.
Before you put it in.
Before I put it in.
Yeah, of course.
Right. So I make my own potting soil. And all it needs is carbon. And the ratio is 2 to 1, carbon to nitrogen. So I start with carbon, newspapers, cardboard, paper towels, anything's carbon. And then I layer it with manure I get a guy who brings me 9 yards of manure twice a year. I compost it, I wet it, cook the seeds. Worms are making soil. Worms love paper.
Oh, really?
When you do this, you'll see. See?
Yeah.
They love it.
Wow.
So that's about as, they're already making soil, see?
Yeah, that's good.
That's already topsoil.
Yeah.
The food supply is populated by people who don't give a shit. So you have to, like going to a restaurant, you don't know the cook.
Right.
You don't know what he's done.
Right.
You really do risk your life every time you eat in a restaurant.
Right.
You know that.
Right.
You don't know if they washed anything.
Right.
You don't.
Right.
Because everywhere I go, this is what people want to know. Because they want to know how to eat, and our food supply is polluted. Everything I buy from a store, I soak in soap and hydrogen peroxide. Every apple, every orange, because somebody's touched it. It's been in somebody's truck. How many people have touched it? 5, 10? I don't know.
Positive news can be found anywhere. While waiting for a train in Los Angeles Union Station, I heard the music of an amazing piano player. In the following segment, we'll hear his inspiring performance of Apollo's Dream.